What if I told you a black teenage girl walked into a courtroom, no law degree, no fancy suit, and made an entire system flinch? They laughed at her. The judge mocked her. The lawyer smirked, like it was open mic night, but she didn't blink, because what they didn't know was that this 17-year-old wasn't there to play lawyer. She was there to expose the quiet racism that hides in America's justice system, the kind that smiles in public and steals in paperwork. And when the truth hit the bench, it didn't just shake one courtroom, it cracked the mirror of the whole system. Stay till the end, because this isn't a story about a case. It's about what happens when the system finally meets someone who speaks its language and refuses to whisper. She wasn't supposed to matter, just another kid, another face the system could overlook. But that morning in Minneapolis, when she stepped onto the marble floor of courtroom 3C, something shifted. Every stare said, she doesn't belong here. Every rule was stacked to remind her of it. Yet behind those calm eyes and that worn-out binder was a mind sharpened by years of watching the world break promises and learning how to make it answer for them. This is where her fight begins. The first thing that hit her was the sound. Heels meeting marble like a metronome that didn't care who was listening. Then came the winter light, thin and cold through the high panes, laying a pale stripe across the security station. For a heartbeat, the metal detector purred, then it squealed as a public defender shoved a cart of files through too fast, and everyone flinched, as if the machine had feelings. Alina Ali Parks didn't flinch. She tightened her grip on a scarred blue binder and stepped forward. The court officer glanced at her face, slid down to her shoes, scuffed, polished anyway, then back up, with the kind of smile you give a kid who put on their parents' blazer. "Business today?" he said, not moving the plastic tub closer. "Always," Allie said, sliding her phone and keys inside. The phone was a cheap model with a hairline crack in the corner, like a faint lightning bolt. She'd thought about fixing it. She'd thought about a lot of things. But today wasn't for fixing, it was for receipts. On the other side of the detector, the hallway opened like a throat. Reporters perched on benches, tripods at their feet. A woman from a local podcast fought a dead battery. A man's mic was held together with blue painter's tape. A row of tenants in heavy coats, hunched smaller, even in public. One of them, a Somali mother in a floral headscarf, caught Allie's eye, then looked away as if to spare her the weight of expectation. Courtroom 3C smelled faintly of old carpet and sanitizer. The benches creaked, phones rested on knees like tired pets. When Allie pushed through the swing gate, she felt the eyes first, calculating, bored, amused. The clerk called, "Case number 23 SC 1198, Ellis versus North Star Residential Holdings." Naomi Ellis stood so fast her knee hit the pew. She wobbled, caught herself, and exhaled toward the floor. Her coat was thrift store gray, like she was trying not to take up space. Behind that coat were two kids who'd drawn a sun on a page and taped it to a fridge that might not be theirs by month end. Ollie had seen that drawing, bright yellow rays that refused to stay in the lines. "Plaintiff is present," Naomi said. "And who are you?" the judge asked, peering over her glasses. Judge Miriam Whitaker's hair was gathered in a salt and pepper twist, the kind that scared assistants into spell-checking their soul. "I'm here on behalf of the plaintiff, Your Honor," Allie said. A reporter half whispered, half laughed. "She's a kid," like the word could do push-ups. "And on whose authority, Miss Parks, Alina Parks?" She set the blue binder down, sliding forward a single page. "With Ms. Ellis's written consent to assist as a lay advocate in small claims capacity." Small claims, Whitaker said, like the words were a bad joke told too slow. This is not take your child to court day, counsel. I'm not counsel, Allie said, but I never came here to play. A ripple moved through the gallery. Not laughter, not disapproval, just notice. The defense table stirred. Daniel Fry, all polish and patience, spoke. Your Honor, before we turn this into a civics class, we have rules for a reason. We do, Allie said, tapping her tab, and I brought them with me. Judge Whitaker sighed, the sound of coffee gone cold. Limited leave, foundational matters only. Understood, Allie said. She didn't smile. Not because it wasn't a win, but because smiling would have looked like asking for permission. Proceed, the judge said. Ali opened the binder. Tabs bright like candy. Lemon, sky, cherry, spearmint. Exhibit A, she said. Lease agreement dated March 1st. She moved through the evidence like someone who had rehearsed fairness in private. Screenshots are pliable, Fry said. Time 400 melms. Which is why I'm providing chain of custody, Allie answered. If you want to question authenticity, I can walk you through the process. Fry's jaw tilted a quarter inch, which in his language was a swear. Do not bait counsel, the judge said. Wasn't baiting, Allie said softly. Just offering the worm. A chuckle tried to exist, and failed. The record kept breathing. Under cross-examination, Allie's voice sharpened. What counts as too many? She asked. 4 or 5, sometimes more. What dates? I don't keep a diary. Incident numbers, reports, anything official? I mean, I told my boss. And is it your practice to count adults by glance while you're wheeling a mop bucket? The gallery made that sound people make when truth touches a bruise. No further questions, Allie said, and let silence do the work. She moved through receipts, text threads, and rent dates, slow, deliberate, surgical. When the phrase market alignment arrived, she let it linger until it started to smell like what it was. We're here to look at motive, she said. Sometimes motive prints on letterhead. Counsel, the judge warned. Not counsel, Allie murmured. The room knew what it was looking at. By the time the gavel landed, it didn't slam. It landed. The hallway filled again. Winter light, thin as ribbon. Naomi's hands shook, water whispering from the bubbler. You're doing great, she said. Allie nodded toward a bench. When he says too many people, Allie said, he means you don't look like who he thinks belongs. Naomi smiled faintly. He means someone saw a cousin carry a crock pot. Ali almost laughed. Yeah, that. Ms. Parks, a voice said, and the hallway made space for power. Victor Hale's suit was Navy perfection, his smirk worse. You're out of your depth. Ali looked at him. You afraid of heights or the fall? He blinked it, deciding whether to remember her. Do try not to mistake performance for persuasion, Fry added. Do try not to mistake volume for truth, Allie answered. We'll see you in 10. 10 minutes later, same room, same marble, but the air had shifted. The judge's tone was quieter now. Mr. Fry, if you intend to argue fabrication, you'll need more than adjectives. Allie stayed steady. She finished her walkthrough like she'd built the staircase herself. Naomi's fingers trembled. Allie steadied them, just one finger beneath. It wasn't drama anymore. It was the slow turning of pages. Outside, a snowplow sang distant metal. Inside, truth settled into record. Ms. Parks, the judge said softly, you may proceed to your timeline. Allie did. Each date, landing like a step she'd carved herself. The gallery had stopped whispering. The reporter forgot to record. The air, reverent. "That's all for now, Your Honor," she said. "Very well," said the judge. Then the back door opened. A man in a black suit slipped in, like a thought you don't want to have. He leaned against the wall, smiling like he already owned the next hour. "Back off," he said. "You don't know who you're dealing with." "If that's a threat," Allie said softly, "you'll need to do better, because I'm not going anywhere." His smile changed shape, but not temperature. "Just don't say I didn't warn you." He vanished into the flow. Naomi exhaled. The hallway breathed again. "You okay?" Allie asked. Naomi nodded, brave, but not okay. The afternoon dragged its shadow across the floor. The city outside held its breath. "Tomorrow," Naomi said. "Tomorrow," Allie echoed. They stepped into the snow, small, uncertain flakes, like someone learning to knock. Snow fell like second thoughts, light, hesitant, almost polite, before the wind decided to take a position and pushed it sideways down South 6th Street. Ali and Naomi moved against it with their chins tucked, the binder tight under Allie's arm, as if paper could be body heat if you held it close enough. At the bus stop, a man in a stadium jacket stomped his boots and muttered about salt. Someone's laughter shot out too loud, then fizzled. The city was doing that winter thing where it pretends it's fine. They didn't say much, not because there wasn't anything to say, but because the things that wanted to be said would unravel if they were pulled too hard before they were ready. On the bus, they stood near the back and swayed with the turns, reading the same ad twice. "Need legal help? Call now." Like the ad might blink and become a door. When they reached Naomi's place in Phillips West, the radiator was clanking one step below useful, and the kitchen smelled like a good idea made of garlic and butter, because Eve had been there. She slid a casserole into the oven as they came through the door and feigned surprise like she hadn't timed it perfectly. "You beat the potatoes," Eve said. "Undignified of you." She gathered Naomi into a hug that wasn't shy, then pulled back to check her eyes. "You okay?" Naomi's mouth made a shape that wasn't yes, wasn't no. "I will be," she said. "You know how it is." "I do," Eve said, and she meant it, in a way that didn't make it about her. She looked to Allie, caught the new lines in her granddaughter's shoulders, and read them like a librarian reads a dog-eared page, carefully, knowing it had been loved hard and fast. Maya and Jalen clattered out of the bedroom in socks, skidding the last foot like it was a game invented this second. They latched onto Naomi's legs and then to Allie's, with the fierce, uncomplicated authority of children who recognize adults that show up. Allie crouched and let their arms land everywhere. The binder hit the table with a dense sound, and Eve's eyes clicked to it, soft, proud, and worried at once. "Eat first," Eve said, like a rule that solves more problems than it creates. They did, perched wherever there was chair or not chair. The casserole was the kind of heat that reaches your scalp. Jalen kept forgetting to chew before asking about the bus lights. Maya whispered a secret definitely about crayons. Naomi laughed at nothing in particular, and everything all at once. It felt like a family, with a clock ticking somewhere under the floorboards. When the kids were tucked and the dishes rinsed and turned over like shells, Eve poured tea into mugs that didn't match and pointed her chin toward the blue binder. "All right," she said, "show me where the paper breathes." Allie slid the tabs open like a conversation with someone you don't want to scare. The lemon tab, notices, fanned out like petals. The sky tab, payments, was a clean ladder of dates. The spearmint tab, texts, smelled faintly like gum because she'd shoved a pack there last week and never found it again. She tapped the new section added after court, a white tab labeled in a hurry. People. That man in the black suit, Allie said. He's not in the case caption, but he watches like rents do. Name? Eve said. Not yet, Allie answered, but I'm going to find it. She shuffled the pages, the ones that make a web if you look sideways. North Star Residential Holdings, she read, her voice shifting into the cadence of someone practicing how to make the invisible hold still. Parent in name only. Money moves through Birchline Capital. And Birchline pays Sable Ridge Consulting, a P.O. box in Sioux Falls, and a website that could fit on a postcard. Consulting in quotes, Eve said. With typos, Allie replied, unable to keep the disgust out. They sell wind and call it advice. Eve reached for her notebook, paper that forgives erasing, and wrote each name carefully. Why a P.O. box? She asked, but she already knew. Because it's nobody's door, Allie said. And if the feds come knocking, P.O. boxes don't answer. The radiator coughed like it wanted to comment. Outside, snow brushed the window, then gave up on making a sound. Naomi leaned forward, elbows on knees, watching the tabs, like a dealer's hands. So Victor, he can just keep making new names? He can try, Allie said, but names leave fingerprints when they handle money. Eve set her mug down with the clack that means I'm about to tell you a thing. Humility isn't silence, she said. It's preparation. And justice? Allie asked. Justice is showing up with receipts. They let that sentence hang, the way truth hangs when it isn't trying to win an argument. Ollie looked at Eve's hands, the same hands that shelved thousands of books and carried home the ones the budget couldn't afford to lose. She remembered the quiet room, boxes labeled city council agendas, torn, code enforcement reports, off by one, tenant rights, outdated, secrets kept so long they turned into tools. Now, in a kitchen that wasn't fancy and was therefore perfect, Allie flipped to the last tab, the things that would hurt if they were true, and so they couldn't be allowed to be true. Tomorrow, she said, Fry's going to try tricks, undisclosed income, rumors of a cash daycare, notary seals from wherever was open. We'll answer with chain of custody, and this time we'll bring more than screenshots. We? Naomi asked, gratitude and fear in the same syllable. Malik's coming by, Allie said, relief in her voice. He'll sweep the metadata. If they forged PDFs, the timestamps will sing. If they fake emailed, we'll run SPF and DKIM. If they use template software, he'll find the edge where the pattern repeats. Naomi smiled small. I don't know what those letters mean, but I like how you say them, Eve chuckled. They mean the receipts will arrive with a choir. Allie checked her phone, a DM from Jax Merritt. Hey, Rockstar? She typed slow. Appreciate the coverage. Not ready for interviews. Center Naomi or we don't talk. Then a text from Rosa Alvarez. Tenant union meeting tomorrow night. We'll pack the court. Also, flyers. Ugly in a righteous way. Ollie grinned. Ugly in a righteous way is a love language. They tried to sleep, which is a generous word for replaying the exact moment a man in a black suit smiled like a razor. Allie watched the ceiling like it might blink. She let Eve's taped quote walk her back. Use what you know to widen the light. Siren at 2:48. Radiator hiss at 3:15. Somewhere between them, sleep without pictures. Morning came gray and plain. Naomi left early, a thermos and 2 soft kisses on sleeping heads. Eve made toast that committed and coffee that apologized. Ali opened the binder and wrote 2 lines she needed to reread. Do not rush your good points. Let them see you brought receipts. The winter bus shifted its weight at every light, like a horse asking permission to keep going. Earbuds in, no music, catching the city in the gaps. Two guys arguing last night's game, a woman whispering a prayer in Spanish into her scarf, a teenager watching a makeup tutorial with a focus that could rearrange the world, if someone told her she could. The courthouse had decided to be a different building, energy taut, almost professional in its cruelty. A new poster about respectful conduct tacked up crooked, like fairness could be stapled to drywall. In 3C, Judge Whitaker had a new line between the brows. A mouth less convinced its habits are holy. "Good morning," the judge said. "Ms. Ellis, Ms. Parks." A fractional nod, easy to miss if you wanted it too badly. Fry had a mahogany briefcase and a fresh tie, a commercial for "We Got This." "New evidence, Your Honor." "Affidavits from neighbors concerning unreported business activities." "Neighbors," Allie said softly, just to taste the word. "Let me see them," the judge said, palm up, efficient. 4 affidavits. 2 Wisconsin notary stamps for reasons only low bid knows. 1 traveling notary's signature, like an ampersand trying to leave town. 1 with ink not fully dry, photos cropped to make a shadow look like a line. "First I'm seeing them," Allie said. "We request limited time to review and depose the affiants." "Objection," Fry said, not bothering to stand. "This is small claims. We move faster. They're notarized." "Notarized doesn't equal credible," Allie answered. "It equals notarized." Something like a ghost of a smile touched the judge's mouth. "Depositions," she said. "Limited. By end of week." "As the court wishes," Fry bowed, hating every syllable. "And, Mr. Fry," the judge added, voice smoothing into steel, "one more surprise. And I'll think you believe rules are for other people." The witnesses arrived with coats too thin for the weather and eyes unsure where to land. In the cramped room with the buzzing light, Ollie set a recorder down and made the rules sound normal. "Your words are on record. You can ask for a break. This isn't a test you have to fail." The first woman, soft black beanie, name tag turned backward, answered in a movable whisper until she didn't. "I thought it was a petition," she said, "for tenants' rights." He didn't explain the big words. "Who gave you the paper?" "A man," she said. "He said he worked for management." "Thank you," Allie said, and meant it. The second neighbor sounded perfect, until dates. Then perfection broke its ankle. "One day, just one, when you saw money change hands." Silence. "You received a gift card last week," Allie said, opening a thin envelope. "For cooperation. What kind?" They said, "We take care of our friends." The third folded when the recorder beeped. "He said it was anonymous," she whispered. "He said it would make the building safer." She gave a name that sounded like please while standing on your foot. Back in court, there was no triumph, only grind. Allie laid the summaries down with restraint. Gloating costs more than it buys. "We believe neighbors were intimidated by Ms. Parks's tactics," Fry said, turning on the smoke machine. "Or they're done lying," Allie said. "Not clever, just true." "These will not be admitted," Judge Whitaker said, "and I am reserving the issue of sanctions." From the gallery, the smallest sound of a body letting go. Naomi closed her eyes, opened them again, like practicing the doors she'd walk through. The afternoon slid by in long lines, rent receipts, missing addendum, how market alignment looks friendly in email and predatory in a living room. Ali kept her pace, that steady drum when the path is holding. She didn't look at the back wall, even when the air moved like the black-suited man returned. Seeing him would give him something he hadn't earned. Rosa arrived late, union flyers in hand, hair that learned wind. She squeezed Naomi's shoulder, 2 short pulses, here, here. "You're a problem," she whispered to Allie, proud. "The good kind." "They're going to escalate," Allie said. They always do, Rosa grinned. Want an ugly righteous flyer? Always, Allie said. By blue hour, even the fluorescents were tired. We reconvene tomorrow, the judge said. Mr. Fry, no more surprise. Of course, Your Honor, he lied in church shoes. In the lobby, reporters orbited without landing. Comment? Jax asked. Center Naomi, Allie said, and kept moving. Outside, night had committed. Snow stopped pretending to be delicate. It stabbed at cheeks and telescoped the distance between things. Eve pulled the car around like cavalry. Naomi's head found the window with that little private thunk called finally. You were something, Eve said, merging. I've seen a lot of somethings. You were one of the good ones. It's not over, Allie said. It's never over, Eve said. That's why we eat and sleep and do it again. Eating was leftover casserole with hot sauce. Grief and hot sauce are cousins. Sleep was more truce than sleep. Ali watched snow stick to the streetlight like salt to a rim and tried to map tomorrow without cheating. When sleep finally took her, her body called a vote. And her brain lost. Too early buzz. Text from Malik. I found a seam. Call me when you breathe. They used a template, he said, caffeinated, victorious. Same minute PDF timestamps, cloned signatures, metadata author SR Consultops, Windows Central Time, and the North Star generic emails tied to a hosting block Victor's other LLC uses for a hunting cabin site. Sloppy. Write it so a judge can read without translation? Already did, he said. Also, a Venmo one letter off a North Star employee and a community stewardship fund that only exists as an Excel tab. Allie laughed. Not nice, not mean, just lighter. Bring everything and wear a hat. At your service. Also, better granola bar. Yesterday's was a war crime. Blasphemy, she said, and hung up. On the bus, a woman in scrubs copied a schedule by hand while a toddler gnawed a plastic dinosaur and hummed. Allie felt a hand between her shoulder blades. Not pushing, just reminding. There is a direction. Courtroom 3C was packed like a holiday nobody wanted. The Somali mother brought a friend. Rosa brought elders who smelled like peppermint and church and didn't whisper when they disapproved. The black-suited man was already on the back wall, a smudge in the paint. Allie did not look at him. Ms. Parks, the judge said, are you ready? Yes, Your Honor, Allie answered, and the room remembered it was a witness. She began with the boring part, where truth hides, paper folds, email headers, metadata strings, cloned signatures, same-minute timestamps, a Venmo with a name almost but not quite, the name it needed if truth were the goal. None of this proves a daycare, she said. It proves a spreadsheet. Argumentative, Fry objected. Foundational, Allie replied. I can recognize numbers, the judge said dryly, and the gallery laughed a little, because justice, when it peeks out, is funny that way. Malik took the stand, hat on, smile small. He made the technical gentle and got out of the way. It wasn't drama, it was competence, which is deadlier. By midday, the room shifted from spectacle to work. Naomi breathed like her ribs were bigger. Rosa took notes like a future workshop. The Somali mother held her friend's hand and whispered something that sounded like see. When the afternoon sagged, Fry tried theater. A countersuit for defamation, his client's good name, the Mud. Sanctions remain on the table, the judge said, not looking up. And he sat like someone cut his string. They broke before sundown, the judge's voice hoarse at the edges. We reconvene tomorrow. In the hallway, Gideon Black tried to disappear into a shadow. It was daylight. Even shadow has limits. Still here, he said, almost bored. You're tenacious. Rent's still due, Allie answered. Easy. You don't know who you're dealing with. I know how to file a motion, she said. Cute, he smirked, and vanished like a smudge on the wrong side of the glass. Ali stood very still until the need to shake passed. She thought of Eve's quiet room, of boxes marked outdated that turned lies into footnotes, of Naomi's kids and their sun drawing, of receipts. She adjusted the binder against her ribs, like a sleeping animal shifting, needing more of her warmth. She caught Naomi's eye and smiled. Not victory, not even relief. Just the ordinary recognition two people exchange when they're carrying the same weight and taking turns with the handle. Tomorrow, Naomi said again, trying it like a password. Tomorrow, Ali answered, and they stepped into the winter air as if the door had opened, for them alone. Morning came wearing last night's snow, like a shrug. The courthouse steps were scrubbed but slick, the kind of clean that still remembers falling. Ali reached for the door handle and felt the air shift, the way a hallway feels when a teacher you don't like appears at the far end. Two officers stood just inside, stiff, rehearsed. Miss Parks? The taller one asked, though his eyes had already decided. Yes, officer, Ali said, face still. We need to talk, he said, leaving the verb heavy. Naomi, 2 strides behind, clutched her bag strap like it owed her money. Is there a problem? She asked, voice trying to be neutral and failing into human. A glance toward the lobby. Daniel Fry, mahogany calm, pretending to scroll. Victor Hale watched like a man at a dog show who bet on the wrong breed and wouldn't pay up. We've received a report, the officer said, alleging that you, Miss Parks, submitted fabricated digital evidence. Ali felt the cold leach through her soles. She breathed once, slow enough to be a decision. That's a serious accusation, she said. What evidence do you have to support it? We're not here to litigate, the officer said, the words sounding like a coffee cup shoved under a dripping sink. We're doing due diligence. We'll need you to come to the station for questions. Naomi's hand found Ali's sleeve, trembling, trying not to. Victor's mouth bent toward a smile that didn't arrive. Fry kept scrolling nothing. I'll answer questions, Ali said, after I notify counsel. Counsel? The shorter officer lifted eyebrows, clever in his head. Retired legal aid, Ali said, dialing. And my grandmother will want to know where I am, because she cooks for stress. Mr. Price, it's Ali. They want to talk to me at the station. A beat. Of course I'll wait. Lobby of 3C. They waited. In that strange pause the world does when it's trying on futures. A bailiff cleared his throat. A court reporter passed with a black donut of a machine and shoulders set to brave. A baby hiccuped a cry and was shushed by a song with no words. Ali turned herself into a structure, upright, balanced, load-bearing. Samuel Price arrived, scarf with opinions, coat that remembered 40 winters. He moved like a man ignored by power who'd learned how to make that ignorance expensive. Gentlemen, he said, wasting no syllable, is my client under arrest? She is not, the tall one said. We just want to ask some questions. Then she's free to go, Price replied, even, quiet, certain. If you want her time, schedule it. If you want more, make a case to a judge. And if you're acting on the word of a landlord who stands to lose money in the next 90 minutes, drink some water and reconsider. We're just trying to do our jobs, the shorter officer tried. So do them, Price said. Due process is part of the job. Naomi's breath made a sound. Victor's not smile collapsed. Fry found a real notification and didn't like it. We have a hearing, Ali told the officers, and walked away before anyone could keep her in a conversation she hadn't consented to. Inside 3C, heat fought windows and lost. Overbright morning, fluorescent insistence, justice best served under bulbs that show every pore. Judge Whitaker took the bench, posture not kind, but attentive. Sometimes that matters more. Before we resume, Fry rose. All sales pitch. The defense seeks to admit additional financial records demonstrating undisclosed income received by Ms. Ellis. Ali had rehearsed the irritation into precision. We request time to review, Your Honor, and depositions of affiance. Notarized isn't reliable. Rosa whispered what she said 2 benches back and earned a look from a bailiff that would have melted colder snow. The folder made its way. Bailiff, clerk, bench. Pages flip, eyes scan, mouth still. Ms. Parks, the judge said at last, you have the afternoon to review. Depositions tomorrow, limited scope. Mr. Fry, provide contact info for each affiant and the names of any person who collected these statements. Fry's eyelid twitched. A small, satisfying weather event. Good, Whitaker said. Now, back to the case we actually have. Ali walked the court through the ladder of receipts, the occupancy clause that meant what it said, the texts that scheduled inspections like threats, and never showed up. Voice calm enough to set a glass on, clear enough not to be mistaken for friendly. The gallery followed. The gallery is smarter than it gets credit for. Noon break. The hallway stuttered with traffic and impatience. On a bench, hip to hip, Ali opened the new evidence folder, cheap paper snagging her fingertips. 4 affidavits, interstate notary jokes, photos cropped so tight a shadow could be a handoff, a backpack, contraband instead of kindergarten. She searched for seams where the lie didn't get enough stitching. Metadata whispered 2 stories, creation within minutes. Author SR Consult Ops, signatures repeating flaws, the way real hands rarely do. Text to Malik, bring your eyes and your laptop. They're trying arts and crafts again. On cue, knit hat with ear flaps, somehow not a joke. You rang? Folder, thumb drive, plug in, knuckles crack. The world narrowed to a screen's glow. Okay, he said to the code, let's see who forgot to lie twice. Keystrokes softened on tender things, snapped on arrogance. Lawyers flowed, identical suits, different intentions. Tenants braced in heavy coats, whether that would prefer to be people. Got it. Malik turned the laptop. Same minute timestamps, bold. Same author across all 4, SR Consult Ops. Incremental object IDs left in place. Template function, duplicated, tweaked, exported. Affiant contact? Ali asked. 2 Gmails born last week. One through a free VPN. Not clever. And look, Sable Ridge Consulting pops in the mail headers on the North Star generic emails. Same hosting block as Victor's hunting cabin site. He's recycling his lies. Naomi blinked. Slow. Body processing good news without trusting it. What does it mean for me? It means they're sloppy, Ali said. And we're not. Screens printed. Translations written. What the math says. Inhuman. Back in... The room stretched like a rubber band pulled to its least comfortable length. Your Honor, Ali said, these affidavits were generated from one base file. Same author, same creation window, identical signature artifacts, contact emails born last week. They don't prove a business, they prove a workshop. Objection, Fry said, because gravity. Counsel is editorializing. Not counsel, Ali answered, automatic. Just literate. The judge pinched the bridge of her nose, then relented into a shadow of humor. Mr. Fry, you can rebut the technicals. For now, the court will hear them. Malik took the stand, understated, puzzle-happy, directions to a grocery store, That's how he explained it. Notaries certify signatures, not truths. PDFs carry footprints. If you copy a story and forget to change its shoes, the tracks line up. So, the judge asked, if these were real neighbors, we would expect a mess. Malik smiled. Different devices, timestamps, typos. Real life is sloppy. Fraud only knows one font. A small laugh pinged off the back glass. Even the bailiff cracked a molar of a smile. Fry's face did nothing, which is a talent. These will not be admitted, the judge said, and the court will entertain sanctions at the proper time. Victor pushed his chair back an inch, then paid it back quick. Gideon leaned on his usual wall, unimpressed, a coffee stain that refused to be scolded. Ours behaved like animals that needed walking. Allie tethered the maintenance supervisor to specifics until generalities ran out of leash. She eased Naomi through sentences that were not apologies, just facts. The rent ledger made that good paper sound authority, lightly worn. Fry waited for a lull, then stood, breath arranged. In light of baseless accusations, my client intends a countersuit for defamation. The gallery groaned. Families on black ice behind a brake-happy car. The judge didn't flinch. File what you like, she said. Thin steel. But if you use this court as a cudgel to punish a tenant for defending her rights, you will find the limits of my patience. Price didn't smile. His eyes did. Rosa wrote sanctions and underlined it 3 times, hard enough to tear the page. Allie starved the moment of drama, hand on the binder, breath counted in 4s. Adjourned at 5, though the clock said a different lie. Hallway churned, jackets and opinions. Comment? Jax asked, hungry but careful. Center Naomi, Allie said, again, like a prayer with a good beat. Or, we don't talk. Naomi lifted her chin. I paid my rent, I kept my home clean. My kids are not a violation, that's my comment. Wind outside. Plastic signs tapping metal poles. Eve's heater barked, then learned to purr. At home, radiator sang, casserole reheated, and ordinary life kept panic from pitching a tent. Price brought old casebooks and peppermint tea. The war room, gentle edition, pens uncapped, paper in little blocks, everyone's handwriting joining the conversation. Tomorrow, Price said, circling numbers with a bleeding pen, we go in on motive. Retaliation for refusing to turn over the unit for market alignment. Add patterns from other tenants, if they'll speak. Rosa's lining them up, Allie said. Some will, some won't. We don't push. We hand them a mic, a time limit, and say thank you. Eve slid sliced apples into the center, an offering. And you sleep, she told Allie, without looking up. Sleep, or pretend until sleep believes you. Allie pretended. Ceiling spot where the paint roller lost patience. Officers in the morning, Mr. Price stepping between her and accusation, like a door on a draft. Gideon's friendly menace, templates and metadata, how fraud tries to be neat, because it doesn't know how to be a person. Sleep came deep and featureless, a winter lake that keeps its stories under glass. Dawn pulled itself up by the edges. Coffee proofed the air. Naomi swapped shifts by phone. Allie chose the same navy blazer. Sometimes armor is repetition, binder. Tucked, kiss to Eve's cheek, like a promise. A morning with no decisions yet. Courthouse steps, Rosa with tenants and flyers. The wind tried to eat the paper and failed. We're ready, Rosa said. Ugly righteous, ×2. Thank you, Allie said, meaning a lot of things. Today, Rosa added, we say the parts out loud. Inside 3C, warmer than it should be, elders in their good coats, a teenage boy in a fast food polo from overnight, a woman with a baby strapped, pacifier math with one hand, pen with the other. Gideon took his wall. Victor took his seat like it owed him a refund. Fry angled his tie to maximum plausibility. Judge Whittaker scanned, gaze landing on Allie for a beat that was not nothing. "Ms. Parks," she said, "we'll hear your response to alleged undisclosed income, then return to notice, occupancy, and motive." "Yes, Your Honor," Allie said. No raised voice, no dramatized fraud. Numbers walked to their conclusion and held hands with pictures. Malik's charts didn't dance. They pointed. Affidavits folded themselves into a file labeled "No." The judge listened like someone choosing not to enjoy being wrong. By noon, heat that wasn't from vents. Spectacle to work, work to consequence. Victor dabbed his forehead with a napkin like decency could be mopped. Fry's pen stopped performing. Gideon watched and watched and watched. "Mr. Fry," the judge said, temple on knuckle, "unless you have concrete evidence to the contrary, the court will deem your affidavits unreliable and proceed without them." Habit made Fry stand. "We'll be filing a countersuit for defamation." "File what you see fit," she answered. "But this court will not tolerate frivolous attempts to chill a party's right to seek relief." Time found a lane and used it. Ali kept pulling the thread. The seam kept giving. Naomi sat straighter. Rosa's pen ran dry. A stranger shared theirs, and the smile counted as testimony. The Somali mother squeezed a friend's hand and whispered, "See." Session ended. Dusk waited at the door in a gray coat. Hallway yawned. Gideon drifted into Allie's path. Casual menace with a long memory. "Still standing," he said. "Receipts are heavy," she answered. "They hold you up." His eyes, flat river, thin ice, flickered. "You have no idea how long this game is." "I know," Allie said. "I brought lunch." "Cute," he said. Softer now, like the word pinched. He stepped aside. Naomi's cheeks were bright with cold, and not cold. "You didn't let him scare you," she said, more hope than awe. "I let him talk," Allie said. "Talking's free." Doors pushed open. Wind chose a direction for a second. Eve's car idled. Windows fogged to privacy. The city smelled like exhaust, snow, and something fried 2 blocks over. A bus wheezed, opening its mouth to let people out who had someplace to be that had nothing to do with court. On the ride home, Eve kept eyes on the white lines, heart on the 2 girls, one by blood, one by choice, cutting through a system with sheet paper and stubbornness. "We keep going," she said. "We keep going," Allie answered. Phone buzz, Rosa. Packed the Union Hall for tomorrow. Elders bringing cookies. Also, a guy named Luis has something he couldn't say before. "Which Luis?" Eve asked. "The maintenance supervisor," Allie said. "Maybe he's done being useful to the wrong story." Evening slid in like a page turning itself. Kids tumbled over the couch to hug Naomi, rehearsed. Jalen presented a dinosaur for cross-examination. Maya announced a lost crayon with recall-level seriousness. The house breathed like it had decided to stay. After bedtime and dishes and tea, the war room woke gently. Price drafted language with teeth, no swagger. Rosa texted flyers thumbtacked in laundromats, ugly, righteous, perfect. Malik emailed a clean chart and a dirty one, in case the clean one bored anyone into disrespect. "Tomorrow," Price said at the door, hand on the knob, benediction, "we don't go for blood, we go for bone." Quiet settled, not empty, deep. Allie opened to Eve's old quote. Paper soft with fingerprints, Use what you know to widen the light. She pressed her palm there, feeling a heartbeat that wasn't the papers, wasn't the quotes, and wasn't entirely hers. It belonged to the version of the city that hadn't given up yet. Lights out, radiator hissed. Snow ticked the window in a slow code. Somewhere, Gideon picked a new wall. Somewhere else, Victor rehearsed a denial to a fogged mirror. In here, Naomi slept the sleep of a person who told the truth enough times to be tired. Allie closed her eyes and did not dream. She didn't need to. Tomorrow had already decided to arrive. By morning, the courthouse had grown a new sign on the bulletin board, all caps about filings and decorum, like manners could fix what money breaks. The clerk's window held a line of people who looked like they were paying for mistakes that weren't theirs. Fry breezed past with a stapled packet, the posture of a man who expects doors to recognize him. He slid the paperwork under the glass, as if tipping a valet. "Countersuit," he said, not quite loudly, but loud enough. Word travels fast in buildings built to hold it. By the time Allie took her place beside Naomi at counsel table, Judge Whitaker had read the caption twice, and made the face of someone chewing a seed by accident. She rapped the bench once, not angry, just done. "Mr. Fry," she said, "this isn't a billboard. We'll take up your motion after depositions." Fry smiled like sun breaking through a cloud you didn't ask for. "Of course, Your Honor." Allie didn't look at him. She looked at Naomi's hands, open on the table, palms up like two questions turned into prayers. She set the blue binder between them, a shared spine. Deposition started in the third-floor conference room. 6 chairs, a cheap speakerphone that made everyone sound underwater, and a window staring at a brick wall like it was a painting. Malik rolled in a cart, a printer with opinions, a laptop, 2 highlighters, and the confidence of a 19-year-old who'd slept 4 hours and made peace with it. Samuel Price set a recorder on the table and announced the matter with the steady cadence of a man who'd found his metronome decades ago. "We're on the record," he said, and the little red light blinked like it believed him. Victor Hale went first, because he wanted to go first. He sat like a man who had always been sat for, and told a chair it was doing it wrong. Cameras are honest when they're bored. They made his angles less flattering. "State your name," Price said. "Formalities like fence posts." "Victor Hale." "Occupation?" "Real estate investor." "Do you own, directly or through a controlled entity, North Star Residential Holdings?" Victor adjusted a cufflink. "I own interests in several enterprises." "Do you own or control Birchline Capital?" "I'm not sure what you mean by control." Price didn't sigh. Professionalism has muscles. "Do you have the power to direct management and policies of Birchline Capital?" "My attorneys advise me not to speculate." Allie kept her eyes on Victor, on the tiny pulse at the base of his throat. "Mr. Hale," she said gently, "have you ever initiated payments from an account in your name to Sable Ridge Consulting?" "I don't handle day-to-day disbursements." "Are you familiar with Zelle or ACH transfers?" Victor's smile was an instrument. Today, he played amused. "I'm familiar with many financial tools." Malik slid a printed spreadsheet across the table, paper with a reasonable hiss. "We pulled your public FEC donations from the state database," he said, then cross-referenced the bank's last 4 digits with the account that funded Zelle micro-deposits to Sable Ridge. Those micro-deposits verify a new payee. The dates line up with Sable Ridge invoices. Would you like me to read the memo lines, or will you acknowledge them? "Objection to form," Fry coughed ceremonially. "Noted," Price said. "Mr. Hale?" Victor shifted. The cufflink lost courage. I don't recall those transactions." "Then I'll help your recall," Allie said. soft. On April 12th, 2 microdeposits, 13 cents and 16 cents. April 14th, invoice 001, memo SR Consulting, ops fee. The pattern continues for 3 months. It's not a felony to pay a company. It is a problem when that company fabricates evidence and your attorney marches it into court. You're accusing me of, Victor began. We're asking for clarity, Price said mildly. Accusations, if any, will be in writing where they belong. My client is not obliged to answer compound hypotheticals, Fry leaned in, nor to tolerate implication by spreadsheet. Malik smiled, all teeth. Good thing we brought more than spreadsheets. Hui's records, hosting blocks, a cabin rental site on the same server, subdomains that read like aliases. If I were dramatic, Malik said, I'd call it a web. It isn't. It's a desk with too many drawers, and they all stick. You're under oath, Ali said gently. This goes better if you don't arm wrestle the record. He breathed out through his nose, a tired bull. I consult with many vendors. If someone at a vendor did something improper, that's on them. Good to know, Ali said. We'll let the court decide how ownership and control work. The neighbors followed. Hard to call them witnesses now. The man with the too smooth story arrived stiff-collared, freshly barbered. 2 minutes, then the first I don't recall. On the third, Ali put a gift card receipt in front of him. The brand smiled up, pleasant as a grocery aisle. Who gave you this? A friend. Name? He said I could call him G. Full name, Price said, eyes down. Gideon, the man said, the word falling like a nickel he didn't mean to spend. Gideon Black. The beanie and backwards name tag witness apologized to the recorder as if it could forgive. He said it was a petition. For safer halls, she whispered. I asked if there was a catch. He said the catch was not doing it. Fingers that should have been baking bread, holding pens in rooms with war in them. He had this smile, she added, like he wasn't going to be here when it mattered. By 1:30, Malik's sandwiches were more theory than lunch. Jax texted twice. We're live at 6, quote, and then, episode title, Teen Lawyer Shreds Slumlord. Ali replied, Don't make me the story. Make the story the story. At 3, Victor's patience cracked its paint. Price asked why the occupancy clause mattered so much the week after North Star emailed that they'd love to update the unit for market alignment. I don't read every email, Victor said. You sign off on increases, Price said. You approve market alignments. My team. Your team acts on your motive, Ali said. The motive is more rent. Ms. Ellis is in the way. Fry's objection fell like a coin that paid for nothing. The court reporter backspaced. Typed. The right word, backspaced again. Tired of catching rocks thrown in a glass house. When depositions ended, the building exhaled. Rosa caught Allie's elbow, jogging to keep pace. Union Hall at 7. We feed people, let them speak, tell them what to bring, lease, photos, their own voice. We collect stories. We sort patterns. Come if you can. I'll be there, Allie said, then hedged. At least part. Bring the boy genius, Rosa nodded at Malik. People think metadata is a salad they can't afford. Say it like it's bread. I can do bread, Malik tapped his chest. By 5, the city was the color of a bruise that decided to heal. Eve drove them home, window cracked, heater stuck on enthusiastic. Naomi guided her kids inside with tired grace. Ali hugged Eve with her forehead. Union Hall, she said, back by 10. I'll leave the light on, Eve answered, as if it had ever been off. 7 Corners Union Hall smelled like coffee, old varnish, and hope with a job. Folding chairs multiplied. Elders set out cookie trays that required opinions to make. A hand-lettered banner read, "Tenants United," slanted but fierce. The mic on the milk crate popped and settled. Rosa stepped up. Rooms leaned forward for Rosa. "Thank you for coming. If you're new, welcome. If you're tired, we see you. If you're scared, you brought the right thing." She lifted a flyer. "This is ugly and righteous, like me, like us." Laughter unknotted shoulders. Allie stood aside, binder hugged to ribs. Malik's laptop opened to a blank document titled Stories. People lined up at the mic. They spoke, not in a rush, not to perform. Budget, leaks, notices on fridges holding kids' art. A man with a fading tattoo. Someone else is waiting who appreciates a view. A grandmother offered a deal if she left quietly. The Somali mother spoke of gratitude, how the word was used against her like a leash. "Bring what you have," Rosa said each time. Leases, texts, emailed promises that fell down the stairs. "We'll scan tonight, names safe, unless you say otherwise." Malik typed, turning lives into lines the system would admit were real. Not a story, a database. Databases can shame monsters when used right. Jax hovered at the back, mic low, letting dead air breathe, not chasing tears, taking notes like a man who planned to get it right later. Near the end, Luis Ortega shuffled in, jacket done fighting. He avoided the mic, orbiting the cookie table. Ali pressed coffee into his hands, didn't say his name. "There's stuff," he said to the cup. "What kind of stuff?" Ali kept her voice low. "Ground level. Pressure," he said. "For entries we didn't make. Photos we didn't take. My boss said I'd be taken care of if I remembered right." "Who's your boss?" Malik asked softly. "I didn't say I'd say his name," he said, but he didn't leave. "You didn't?" Ali agreed. "You said pressure. That's enough for now." He nodded, grateful for a line he could stand on. "I got a doorbell video," he added, almost afterthought. "Cousin's place, across from Naomi's. Installed it 'cause her ex doesn't knock. Caught something last night. Someone set a caution sign and poured water. In the dark." "You have it?" "On my phone." They huddled over the small screen like campers over a flame. Grainy, the way honesty often is. A man in a dark coat slid into frame, placed a folded caution sign near the stoop, tipped a bottle for even coverage, lifted his phone for light, glanced up once. A precaution that doubled as a portrait. Gideon Black, in his favorite posture, unbothered. "I can send it," Luis said. "I don't want no trouble." "You just saved somebody from breaking a hip on a setup," Rosa said. "That's the opposite of trouble." "Text it," Malik said. "Then forward the original file to this email. Don't delete anything." He looked at Luis's shoes, then his face. "I mean, anything." "I'll sit in the back," Luis said, and stayed. By 9, the hall emptied into cold, like a tide that took more shells than it brought. Rosa locked up, muscle memory. She hugged Allie until Bones said hi, and let go. "Tomorrow we bring this," she said. "If the judge won't look, we make her look. If Fry breathes wrong, I'm sighing dramatically." "Please do," Malik said. "I'll bring popcorn." Parking lot wind carried the fake sound of plastic hitting concrete. A yellow caution sign lay on its side near the curb. Allie set it upright, because the way it sat in the world mattered. A figure slid from between two cars, smooth as the video. Gideon's hands empty, his smile not. "Careful," he said. "Wouldn't want anyone to fall." Malik's phone came up, fast, but Gideon was faster than phones. He stepped into the dark like it had been invited, and was never rude. Ali didn't chase. You don't chase what markets itself as a shadow. Breath scraped in, steadied out. You okay? Malik asked. Brother voice. Yeah, she said. I keep forgetting cockroaches can fly, sometimes. Eve's kettle. Home light. Naomi braiding Maya's hair, Jalen arranging dinosaurs in a custody plan favoring T-Rex. The video played, Naomi stiffened, then rolled her shoulders, remembering muscle. He's doing all this because I said no, because I paid my rent and said no. He's doing it because it worked on other people, Allie said. He thinks it might work on you. Naomi tied off the braid with a bright elastic, a flag. Then he doesn't know me. He will, Allie said. A smile with something older behind it. Sleep in increments. 20 minutes, 40. A night that takes what it wants and dares you to complain. Radiator Morse code that sounded like keep going. Heartbeat loud and useful. 3 lines in the dark. Don't argue with a lie. Show it a mirror. Let the room do the math. Morning smeared a thin orange. Promising nothing, delivering a little more than that. Same blazer. Because consistency is a spell if you cast it right. Binder tucked. Doorbell video on a flash drive. Kiss to Eve's cheek. Luck and love. A city that had learned her shape. The courthouse buzzed, like someone had plugged it in. The Somali mother already there, hands around home coffee. Rosa, flyers stacked, a grin that knew the board favored her move. Luis hovered with a cap pulled low, the look of someone who'd chosen brave, and was stuck with it. Inside 3C, Gideon took his wall, pretending he'd been printed on it at construction. Victor wore a new tie and an old headache. Fry conducted an invisible orchestra with his pen. Good morning, Judge Whitaker said, meaning the grammar, not the sentiment. Ms. Parks, the court will hear your response to the countersuit and any additional evidence pertaining to alleged retaliation. Allie stood. Yes, Your Honor. No speech. She cued the video. The screen glowed, jittered, settled. A man performed hazard in the dark. He didn't rush. He didn't hide his face. He placed the sign with care and tipped the bottle like he'd been told to go slow. No one breathed loudly. Even the HVAC took a beat. Timestamp, 2 a.m., Allie said, after the silence did its work. Location, directly across from Ms. Ellis's building. Source, neighboring doorbell camera, identified by multiple witnesses as Mr. Gideon Black, associate of North Star's property services contractor, will submit affidavits and original footage to preserve metadata. Irrelevant, Fry tried, throat failing to clear. An unfortunate coincidence. Retaliation isn't a coincidence, Allie said, gentle, almost kind. It's a formula. You add pressure and lies and hope the tenant falls. The judge's jaw flexed. Once. She looked at Gideon's still frame, then away, as if the image might leak poison into the air. Mr. Fry, she said, voice not raised because it didn't need to be. This court will not be used as cover for intimidation. The countersuit will be addressed on its merits. Today, we move forward on Ms. Ellis's claims. She turned to Allie. Proceed. Allie did. She printed the path with her words. Rent receipts, absent addendum, inspections texted like threats and never arriving, emails about market alignment that burst like soap bubbles when touched, Zelle microdeposits under the document camera, beetles pinned in a case, the web laid flat, made into a road map. When she finished, there wasn't applause. There was something better. The noise people make when they realize the room has tilted toward them and they didn't have to shove. Naomi sat, straight-backed, remembering the first on-time rent, proud and small, and then just proud. Fry stood, because gravity didn't apply to him. Your Honor, we will address your countersuit in due course, the judge said. For now, unless you have credible evidence, not crafted affidavits and uncorroborated claims, you will sit down. He sat, a tiny miracle. The judge looked at the gallery, saw what Allie always saw, people who took off work to be told whether their lives were enough. For the first time since the first day, she turned and spoke to Allie without armor. "Ms. Parks," she said, "skill is not a function of age. The court misjudged you. We will do better." Allie didn't let her face break. A small nod, barely motion, like letting a bird land and letting it go. Lunch break. In the hall, Gideon ghosted by and didn't speak. New. Weather changing. Rosa pressed a cookie into Allie's hand. Raisins, not tricks. Malik fist-bumped Luis so gently the air barely noticed. "You think this ends today?" Naomi asked, scarf tucked close. "Endings are greedy," Allie said. "We get decisions, then we decide what to do with them." "And him?" "Him we put on paper, then let paper do what it does." The gavel called them back. The room reassembled. Allie took a breath like a swimmer grabbing surface. Her hand touched the binder, the way some touch a Bible. She didn't pray. She'd already done that in her own language. "Ready?" Price murmured. "Always," she said. Not the same as yes, but it would do. The afternoon began. The clock remembered its job, and if the building felt different, if the marble carried sound in a new key, maybe truth had picked a corner and started hammering. Or maybe a girl with a binder had turned receipts into a mirror and held it steady, long enough for a system to see itself. Afternoons in that courtroom had started to feel like weather, pressure you could sense before the front arrived, a stillness that made the next gust inevitable. The gavel tapped, not hard, and the room reassembled. Shuffling legal pads, a pen clicking like it wanted a different career, a cough swallowed because the moment felt too sharp for noise. "Resume," Judge Whitaker said. Less a permission, more a gravity. Allie rose. She didn't look at Gideon on the back wall, or Victor's smooth tie, or Fry's prearranged frown. She set her binder on the lectern, opening to a tab that had waited for this precise minute, a map through shell companies, and the receipts that tethered market alignment to its favorite prey. "We've walked the lease and the missing addendum," she said, steady, unhurried. Line by line through the rent ledger. Notice that didn't happen. Today, the part the emails hint at but won't name. Motive isn't a pond you look at, it's a river you follow. The document camera blinked awake. On the screen, a hand-drawn diagram in thick pen, like a recipe you write for someone you love. North Star at the top. A line to Birchline Capital. A line to Sable Ridge Consulting. A sidebox, huntersrestcabins.com, because sometimes you call a lie by its funnier name to take away its costume. North Star is the brand, Allie tapped. Birchline, the wallet. Sable Ridge, the mask. Inspection that never arrived. Then market alignment. Not random. The start of a pressure campaign. "Objection," Fry said, polite contempt. "Speculative. Counsel is narrating a Netflix special." "Not counsel," Allie answered, without turning. "And not speculative." Printouts lifted. ACH microdeposits, memo lines for ops fee, Sable Ridge invoices, 0001, 002. A spreadsheet that had stopped feeling polite. Price laid foundation like he'd built half the town. Malik, second row, with exhibits ready to translate machine into human. The judge scanned. No nod. No frown. Just understanding spreading like coffee through paper. Inevitable and staining. "Proceed," she said. "Not grace. Permission to work." Ali drew the line with voice, not ink. Emails about market alignment arrived the week after Sable Ridge's first invoice. The inspection Ms. Ellis prepared for never happens. Days later, an eviction notice, over occupancy, no addendum, no incident report, but somewhere a spreadsheet wants this unit empty. Rosa's pen squeaked like a little cheer, Naomi's jaw unclenched, letting the picture form, not a theory, a pattern heavy enough to trip a judge. Fry tried to slice. Ordinary consultancies for tenant intimidation, Allie whispered. A whisper lands where a shout ricochets. Screening and compliance, Fry finished, flinching. Malik, to no one in particular, mundane accounting doesn't fabricate affidavits. The doorbell video next, Gideon turning night into hazard with a prop. Retaliation, Allie said as the still froze on a calm face. After court, after depositions, after the countersuit threat. The judge held the image a beat longer than the room breathed, then let it go dark. Coincidence, Fry offered, the word small in his mouth. Silence answered. Silence has a tempo. Back to the diagram. Back to boring, because boring is bulletproof. Registration agents, Secretary of State filings, P.O. boxes where anonymity sells by the month, notices stapled identically, templates with the same brain. Not a web, a ledger. Webs sound theatrical, ledgers sound like taxes. The judge asked for witnesses, human pattern. Work boots too clean to be off duty. I got notice the week I said I couldn't pay the increase. Someone else is waiting who appreciates a view. Help me help you. Hearsay? Objected. Foundation? Supplied. Somali mother. Blue headscarf, English careful, eyes not. He told me be grateful to have a roof, like a roof means silence. 2 more tenants. Small dollars, mysterious fees, inspections that never happened, haunting a ledger anyway. The judge's pen clicked, a metronome she hadn't meant to start. Guess long term? Fry poked. 2 nieces for 2 weeks, Work boots said. Their mom had surgery. I told the office. They said, we'll note it. They noted it. Like a knife. Should have felt like finish. Should have felt... Instead, the roller coaster hang before the last drop. Dread can be a draft. The doors opened with badge precision. 2 suits, neat like government. Your Honor, Special Agent Rivera, DOJ, Special Agent Klein, warrant for Mr. Victor Hale, wire fraud, tax fraud, housing-related racketeering. Real life doesn't gasp like movies. Air forgets itself. A chair leg squealed. A prayer sounded like a name. Victor went pale. Fry's hand landed on a forearm like a coach in a game already lost and under review. Politics, Victor said, voice thin. We'll do this quietly, Rivera to the judge. Brows lifted, then process. Very well. Mr. Hale will accompany the agents. Court reconvenes tomorrow, 9 a.m. Gideon pushed off his wall, hands tucked, paycheck cuffed, glancing at Allie as if noting a new landmark on a map he thought he knew. The cuffs were glassware. The door closed. The room exhaled what it wouldn't admit it held. Recess, the gavel said. The hallway became a small city. Jax floated in. I know, Center Naomi. 1 sentence? This isn't one landlord, Allie said. It's a pattern that takes money from quiet people. Today wasn't a twist. It was gravity. Union Hall that night. Less rally, more workshop. Tables labeled documents, stories, questions. Malik's slide, Metadata 101, giant, lopsided. Metadata is footprints, he told elders leaning in. Pencil marks the forger forgot to erase. Boring, until it saves your life. Forward originals. Keep headers. Photograph paper so edges matter. Ali circled words in leases that love to hide. Fee. Addendum. Inspection. Rosa moderated a forum that sounded like church, and a group chat. What's retaliation? Lights accidentally off, elevators broken on move-out day, boots on stairs at midnight, door knocks that aren't knocks. Luis by the coffee, still disbelieving. Agents took him, for real. For real, Allie said. But the countersuit will try to live. Corporations think they can be offended indefinitely. Corporations cry now? They leak oil, Rosa said, and call it tears. Back at Eve's, the gentle war room. Price. Anti-slap framing. Early dismissal of retaliatory claims. Sanctions. Not because we like the word, but because the behavior deserves it. If the court wants audits and monitors, we won't say no. Naomi. What if they still scare people, the ones who don't have all this? Ali didn't sell lessons learned. She sold process and people. Clinic, Saturdays, price on intake. Malik teaches receipts. Rosa is Rosa. We build a line so folks don't stand alone at those counters. Eve wrote a list. Tasks, cookies, outreach, childcare corner, underlined twice. Summoning babysitters by ink. Midnight honesty. Wrung out diligence. Mug to sink. Hands under a faucet not yet on, pretending the water already there was enough. You did today, Eve said. We did, Ali answered, plural as fact. Tomorrow. Don't go for blood, Eve said. Bone, Ali nodded. Decide the original case. Kill the countersuit with prejudice. Make market alignment mean something that doesn't puncture people. That's library work, Eve smiled. Morning, alarm at 6, radiator at 6:05, terror at 6:10, false alarm, air fragile, cold not proving anything, bus on time, a gift. At the steps, a loose line to watch the world change, elders to the aisle, granola bar, slander forgiven. Luis. Same hat, different jawline. Inside 3C, Gideon arrived, the countersuit still breathing. Good morning, the judge said. Same words, different tone. Slept less, decided more. Status of the defendant, then the countersuit. Fry. My client is temporarily unavailable. North Star is separate. Consider the countersuit on its merits. Price, under breath. Merits, shelving it to find later and tell the truth. The judge's glance flicked to Allie. The countersuit is a blunt instrument, Allie said, meant to scare a tenant out of her rights. Minnesota law and the First Amendment protect claims on public concern. Ms. Ellis reported misconduct and defended her home, punishing her chill's speech, hers and everyone's. Dismiss with prejudice. Sanctions remain. The judge held the moment like a coin, weighing for authenticity. Shame from day one. Pride she wouldn't call pride. A calculation of what the room could bear. I'll rule, she said, after we address the original case. Pivot. The one no one could call accidental. Ms. Parks, finish your case. Allie returned to the receipts like a hymn with a new verse. Naomi spoke only when necessary, shielded by paperwork where others offer empty apologies. The record said what humans had said in the hall: market alignment without process is a threat in a collared shirt. Inspections are done or not. Phantoms don't pitch tents in ledgers. Kids' drawings on fridges shouldn't be evicted by templates. By noon, a body found its posture, people upright not from desperation, but because the chair finally fit. Even Gideon looked bored, which is its own fear. Men like him panic by pretending not to notice you. Break. Cool tile to forehead. Naomi beside her. Parallel, not touching. We're a weird team, Naomi said. The good kind, Allie answered. Back in. History took a seat. The judge shuffled notes, then looked up, not at flags or seal, at Naomi and Allie in a line, at Rosa, at Malik's hat, at elders smelling like peppermint and resolve. "Here's how this proceeds," she said, and everyone's breath took the same shape. First, on the countersuit, Malik's knuckles cracked somewhere behind. Dismissed with prejudice. On its face, an attempt to intimidate a party for seeking relief. We will not litigate reputations to evade accountability. Sanctions under advisement, Sable Ridge and related entities referred for audit and compliance review. Fry exhaled into his own regret. Gideon. Stillness as sermon. Second, slower now, words heavier to last longer. On Ms. Ellis's claim, the court finds for the plaintiff, eviction notice rescinded, damages awarded for retaliatory conduct, the defendant's agent's conduct, agent hung in the air, a word chosen to be remembered, is noted and referred as indicated. Naomi didn't TV cry. She closed her eyes, then opened them as if putting on glasses that corrected more than sight. Rosa squeezed until fingers protested. Malik's breath tried to be a laugh, and almost was. Ali didn't smile, not first. She witnessed the moment a system tried to right itself, even a little. Then her mouth softened, the body registering oxygen. The judge looked straight at her. No armor. "Ms. Parks, skill is not a function of age. The court misjudged you. We will do better." Allie's nod was exact, not shy, not proud. "Justice is a habit," she said, barely above the mic. "We can all practice." The gavel fell, soft, final. No echo. It didn't need one. The hall burst into weather, hugs, handshakes, laughter showing teeth. Joy feral after a cage. Jax kept the camera off. "Can I just listen?" Rosa promised cookies for a month. Price considered retiring and didn't. Gideon passed, no smile. That unnerved more than threats. Men like him only stop smiling when they pick a new tactic. "Cute speech," he murmured. "Try a subpoena next time," Allie said. "They file better." "This isn't over." "It never is." She turned her back. Ceremony has power, too. On the steps, the cold played fair. Naomi held paper that weighed the right amount. "I get to go home," she told the air. "You were always going home," Allie said. Today, the system remembered. No caps thrown, no marble dance. Sidewalk, bright day. Rosa, to the Union Hall, clinic Saturday, bring your receipts. Malik, flyers and a post. How to keep your paper alive. Price. Intake forms that won't scare people. If they do, he'll rewrite them. Eve at the curb. Grin saved for this minute. Arms open. Gravity. Tea, she said, and then sleep, like you mean it. They drove through a city unchanged. And somehow changed. The radiator hummed consent. Maya and Jalen ran in with a paper sun wider than their faces, crayon rays reaching too far, and not far enough. Naomi knelt, and they covered her in light. Allie's eyes watered in the doorway. Private. Eve's hand landed on her shoulder, the exact pressure that knows the difference between holding and weighing down. "You did today," Eve said. "We did," Allie answered. "Tomorrow," Eve said. Not warning, not prayer, just true. "Tomorrow," Allie echoed. Later, the binder open. Like a book finally read in warm light. First page. Old quote, taped and soft. Use what you know to widen the light. Sometimes that light is a courtroom speech. Sometimes a Saturday clinic with bad coffee and perfect cookies. Sometimes a teenager with a binder saying, "Show me the receipts." Sometimes an elder handing out pens. Tonight, a girl not sleeping yet, listening to a quiet radiator, planning a clinic to make paper into armor for anyone who needs it. Outside, Fetitian, The city breathed like it had work tomorrow. Inside, they breathed with it. Across town, thick curtains, suspicious art, Gideon Black dialed a number that went to voicemail on purpose. He didn't leave a message. People like him think the future checks in on its own. Allie closed the binder and let the click be her amen. Morning pulled the city up by its collar. The sky wore that thin, rinsed look of late winter, and the courthouse woke the way old buildings do, radiators clearing their throats, fluorescent lights deciding, one by one, to be brave. Ali climbed the steps with her binder tucked in tight, breath a steady metronome. Yesterday's decision still hummed in her bones, and she didn't try to bottle it. Victories leave warm fingerprints. You let them stay, then you wash your hands and get back to work. Naomi was early, scarf looped twice, a takeaway coffee cooling in her palm because she was too wired to drink. Malik jogged up, hat pulled low, laptop bag bouncing like a loyal dog. Rosa met them at the door with 3 granola bars and a promise. Clinic's set for Saturday. I bribed the church ladies with lasagna and the union guys with the good coffee. You're a public utility, Allie smiled. And you, Rosa shot back, are a storm warning. Let's go. Inside 3C, the air had rearranged itself into something closer to right. Even the wood paneling looked less smug. Gideon leaned against his usual wall, posture shifted, less billboard, more shadow. Fry squared papers into neat little lies. The defense table held an empty space where Victor used to spill arrogance. The absence made weather of its own. Judge Whitaker took the bench, all business. Good morning, she said. Before administrative referrals and scheduling, the defense moves to introduce supplemental affidavits about alleged undisclosed income by Ms. Ellis. We'll take that now. Of course. Drag a ghost into the last room, left with light. Fry rose, freshly boiled. These statements go to Ms. Ellis's credibility, a pattern of misrepresenting her financial status. Who collected these? The judge asked. Voice a line you don't cross. A property services contractor employed by North Star. Name? Gideon Black. The judge wrote a note that looked like a memo to her patients, then looked up. Ms. Parks? Ali stood. Depositions before admission, Your Honor. Given the history of fabricated affidavits, we test these under oath. We also request engagement agreements, payment records, and communications between Mr. Black and all affiants. Reasonable, Whitaker said. Depositions at 2. Witnesses will be available. Mr. Black, remain for examination. Court moved through the docket, admin referrals, audit triggers, a stern paragraph on retaliation destined for a training slide that would make a manager sweat. Noon came, then 2 o'clock. Third floor conference room, same cheap speakerphone, same brick view, became a stage again. First witness, new sneakers, fear of microphones, part-time cleaning crew for a North Star contractor. Her affidavit claimed cash drop-offs at Naomi's door on multiple occasions. She swore it true, until Allie slid her pay stub across the table, the bottom scrawled with an address for Sable Ridge Stipend, the same P.O. box from yesterday's diagram. Did you receive additional compensation for this statement? Shoulders hunched. A bonus. How much? 200. Who said? Gideon. He said my name wouldn't be in it. It is, Allie said gently. You wrote it. It's already yours. Second witness, a bodega owner 2 blocks from Naomi's building. He signed that he'd watched parents line up at Naomi's door with cash several mornings a week, dated last month. Malik turned his laptop, weather logs, sub-zero temps, 2 snow emergencies, and a video still of an empty block on the very dates he named. Do you remember those mornings? Allie asked. He shook his head. I remember signing $50 cash in an envelope and a grocery card with a dead pin. From whom? Same guy, slick coat, no smile. Said his name was Black. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't, Malik said. Third witness. Nervous laugh, apologies for the weather, the chair, the pen. She hadn't read the affidavit. I trusted the notary, thought it was for community safety. Why did you think Ms. Ellis was dangerous enough to need a sworn statement? The face crumpled. I don't, she whispered. I'm sorry, I should have asked more questions. Then Gideon. Chair designer posture, interrogator's headache. State your name. Gideon Black. Occupation? Consultant. For whom? Property services, sometimes legal support. Employed by North Star or related entities during the period. My invoices went to a vendor with a North Star contract. I don't see why that's relevant. It's relevant when you pay witnesses, Allie said. I compensated community members for their time, Gideon replied, unbothered. That's not illegal. Paying is legal, Price said mildly. Paying for false statements is not. What did you tell them? That we were gathering info on shadow businesses, that we're tired of being the bad guys when tenants break rules. Help me help your building. And you said their names wouldn't appear. Yes. Which was false. Gideon smiled. Not if the judge hadn't asked for depositions. Rosa wrote "wow" in her notebook, underlined hard enough to scar cardboard. 4:30, they wrapped. 5 o'clock, back in 3C. Gallery repopulated by news, neighbors, the curious. Allie summarized, spare, unsentimental. Compensation tied to affidavits, weather contradicting claims, a pattern of misrepresentation by Mr. Black. Exclude the supplemental affidavits, sanctions renewed. Objection, Fry said, reflex without content. The judge checked the clock, then the people. Excluded, she ruled. Sanctions under consideration, separate order to follow. Mr. Black, your conduct is referred to the appropriate authorities. Gideon finally blinked. Small, satisfying. With the gambit smothered, the rest moved quick. Written order, eviction rescinded, damages for retaliation, city housing inspection to review North Star properties for the pattern described in open court. A pro tem compliance monitor appointed, someone with no patience for euphemism, to audit notice and occupancy enforcement across the portfolio. Fry asked for a stay. The judge declined. We're done staying where we've been. Adjourned. Not an ending, a bell at the end of an honest shift. Jax asked for one line. Ali gave him one she could live with. This wasn't about one landlord. It's a page ripped from a longer book about racism in America, the quiet kind, written into policies and procedures. He nodded. Mic down. No second take. Outside, small circles, rides plotted, childcare planned, food promised. The courthouse looked like a building that had seen worse and was willing to see better. Eve slid her arm through Ali's and they walked into a light with color again. Saturday, the Union Hall became a machine that makes proof. Folding tables, scanners, Sharpies. A whiteboard read, receipts are love notes to yourself. Price at intake. Neat pad, good tired smile. Rosa on triage with a headset and no patience for nonsense. Naomi pouring coffee, laughing with her whole face. People came. Elders with file folders older than some marriages. Single moms with phone screens full of polite threats. A nurse who looked like Naomi. Everywhere, because rent and work and parenting don't wait. Allie floated, not above, between, translating clauses that didn't deserve their fangs. A teen in a hoodie whispered, "What's metadata?" Malik grinned. Footprints, pencil marks the forger forgot to erase. He taught headers, originals, the holy word no to screenshots. The boy nodded like he'd just been trusted with a tool. Lunch, chili seasoned with gossip and love. Rosa spoke unplanned. It came out perfect and crooked. We're not heroes. We're neighbors who learned the rules. They thought we wouldn't. Surprise. Evening quiet. Half circle on stage. Rosa on steps. Price in a metal chair with a grudge. Malik cross-legged like a kid. Eve knitting for some future winter. Naomi with kids drawing suns with too many rays. How children understand abundance. Weekly? Rosa asked. Every Saturday morning, Price said, like brunch. I'll build a small site, Malik promised. Templates, record requests, exports, not scary. Add how to keep your paper alive, Allie said. Add how to rest, Eve added. They laughed, promised, underlined the task that smelled like soon, later. Ali walked home alone for the first time in weeks. Not to prove anything, because the city felt less like threat, more like streets that belonged to her. The blue heron mural, the laundromat with the broken change machine. In the alley, a figure stepped from shadow, Gideon. No smile, face borrowed, hands empty and cold. Congratulations, he said, the word reluctant to be his. You trying civil now? Allie asked. We all adapt. You mean when a system stops being your vending machine? Cute, he said, a line that fit worse now. You lost a line, Allie answered, one step closer, not reckless, just unwilling to retreat. Try a subpoena next time. They file better. He stood in it and didn't fill it. This town is small. People remember who caused trouble. They remember who solved it, she said. Write my name down right. Confusion for the first time. You think you won? We wrote a page in a longer book, Allie said. Tomorrow the chapter changes. Be in it or be a footnote in someone else's indictment. A slow nod, respect or threat. See you around. Or not, she said, walking past. No speed up, no shadow running to catch her. Home smelled like soap, tea, and last night's onion. Eve at the table with a crossword and the kind of patience that could solve bigger puzzles. Walk good? Yeah, ran into our friend. He tried a new tone. You try a new one back? Same as always, Allie said. Receipts. Eve tapped the tape-worn quote on the fridge, the one that used to embarrass Allie and now felt like a handrail. Use what you know to widen the light. Still works, Eve murmured. Still works, Allie nodded. Sunday, pancakes, and homework she'd pretended didn't exist. An essay on civic responsibility that read like a love letter to boring procedures. For once, you made this interesting would be a compliment to process, not just gumption. Monday, Jax dropped the episode. Not teen lawyer shreds slumlord. Receipts. How one case showed the math of a system. Price on due process. Rosa on organizing. Naomi on keeping lights on. Malik on the joy of boring PDFs. Ali got 4 minutes. He used 30 seconds. If you've ever been told you don't belong, save your receipts, learn the rules, find your people. The comments were soup, the DMs were different. A grandmother in St. Paul asked for the clinic address. A kid in Duluth wanted the maintenance log template for his mom's case. A janitor wrote, "We're told to note violations that don't exist. Bring to you or the city. Ali, both, and bring yourself too." Midweek, the city announced a task force. It sounded like something cities say when they won't change much, but the names made Price stop grimacing for a full minute. This one might have teeth, he said. We'll bring floss. DOJ press release. Bureaucratic rhythm vetted near death. Victor named. Entities by initials anyone could unscramble. No Gideon. Of course not. People like him slip between narratives like Mercury. That's fine. Paper has a long attention span. Saturday clinic again. And again. Word spread like rain through roots. Sometimes 3 people. sometimes 30. Sometimes the only outcome was next steps and coffee strong enough to keep hope awake. Sometimes funds moved after a letter found the right inbox. Sometimes the miracle was smaller, a mom scanning her lease so it kept its edges and stopped being hostage to a drawer. The judge sent a formal apology for the record, a paragraph careful enough to survive a hurricane, tucked in with sanctions and referrals. Eve read it aloud and filed it away, not because it erased day one's harm, but because it made day one's harm less lonely. Institutions don't apologize often. When they do, pin the butterfly and let some fly. 2 weeks later, a letter from a shelter worker. A mom came with 2 kids and a stack of paper. She said you told her to keep receipts. We believed her faster. She's safe. Thank you. Ali put it under the magnet with the heron postcard and the dentist reminder. Not the internet, not content. Food. A Tuesday pretending to be spring. Ollie passed the courthouse on the way to the library. Steps looked like steps again. Just stone. A guard nodded. The guilty kind. We used to laugh, now we don't. She nodded back, both, practicing. The quiet room lived up to its name. Eve had saved a table with a sticky note, reserved for the kid who thinks. Ollie set down a lighter binder, opened a new notebook. First page felt cocky. Blank pages always do. She wrote the thing she tells other people, and realized it had become the thing she believes. Save your receipts, learn the rules, find your people. Footsteps. Naomi, lunch break, 2 coffees, and a smile warmed by sleep and safety. The kids drew you, she said. Very long arms. I think they believe you can hold the whole building. Allie laughed and easy. Tell them the building holds itself, she said. We just found the beams. Evenings came gentle. Gideon didn't reappear. Maybe he left town, changed names, learned nothing. Allie didn't care, so long as he wasn't here. The work will find him if it needs to. Systems can learn to do that, slowly, stubbornly, imperfectly. Boring beats flashy, if you feed it. First honest warm day. The kids drew a new sun, bigger, rays off the paper. Naomi taped it to the fridge, next to the judge's careful paragraph, the shelter worker's letter, and a crooked flyer shouting, Clinic, Saturday, bring your receipts in a font Rosa calls aggressively friendly. Night. Ali stood at the sink, hands under the faucet, and finally turned the water on. It ran hot and easy. Proof, not penance. A towel read, Be nice, or leave in stubborn embroidery. She stepped onto the tiny balcony, a too small chair for anyone not determined. The city hummed. Buses, laughter, someone cussing at a game 3 doors down. She let the sound wash, didn't chase. Jax texted, Weird numbers on the new episode. People keep replaying your last line. Ali typed back the only response that made sense. Cool, see you at clinic. She thought about where racism hides. In spreadsheets and smiles, in inspections and market alignment, in little jokes in big rooms. How it says, prove it, then moves. The finish line. The power of naming it, then showing the math. How it started. Corner store conversation, a kid with a binder, a grandmother with a library key. How it grew. A judge, learning out loud, a neighborhood standing up, an agent serving a warrant in a whisper. How it continues. Clinics with cookies, intake forms with soft edges, templates with verbs that don't flinch, a kid asking, what's metadata? And leaving knowing paper can be armor. Ali lifted her mug, tea, because Eve's rituals save lives, and let the steam touch her face. Somewhere a baby cried, "Tatar," and was answered. Somewhere a couple paused before saying the cruel words. Somewhere in another city, a woman named something else kept her receipts because a story taught her that paper is power. Tomorrow, another tenant will text, another manager will threaten, another judge will mock, and then meet a mirror. Tomorrow, more flyers, more bad coffee, and we call it community. Tomorrow, the work will still be boring and still be beautiful. Ollie turned inside, opened her notebook to a fresh page, and wrote a sentence Eve will tease her for because it sounds like a thesis and tastes like a prayer. Justice is a habit. Practice until it's yours. She underlined it once, and then, because she could, twice. Morning will come. She'll answer new messages, fix a broken link on the clinic site, teach a teenager how to export an email properly. She'll go to school, sit through math that feels like mercy because math has never lied to her. She'll ride the bus without looking over her shoulder. Lunch with Naomi, the kind of friend whose presence makes a room less afraid. A long hug for Eve, a thank you without the word. She closed the notebook, and the night closed around her, not threatening, just present. The radiator hummed low. The sun will rise, breaking its old circle, drawing new rays that don't ask permission to be longer. They widen the light. Not enough. Never enough. But enough. For now. Somewhere, a judge writes another careful paragraph, a clerk stamps it, and a tenant reads it and believes the system for the first time in a long time, not because it's perfect, but because someone taught it to do the math out loud. Ali put out the light. The city kept its hum. On a fridge, a crayon sun kept doing its job. And in the space between stories and statutes, a black teenager they laughed at stood up, held a mirror steady, and reminded America the receipts are the revolution. That's how a girl they laughed at made the system listen. Not with power, not with money, but with proof and the courage to keep showing up. Because justice isn't a moment in court. It's a habit you practice, one truth at a time. And if her story reached you tonight, maybe it's because you've seen that same silence before, the one that asked you to look away. Don't. Share this story. Talk about it. Leave your thoughts below. Not for the views, but for the voices still waiting to be heard. Thank you for staying till the end. Until next time, keep your receipts, keep your hope, and keep the light wide open.